The liquid culture.
What's up, Liquid Culture? Good to see everybody. I know it's been a minute. I'm doing a little bit of an off-dry January, so I haven't been drinking too much of the alcohol. But today we're going to be diving into something that still gives you a little bit of the effect that you might experience when being drunk. But today we're diving into some tea, and I'm really excited about it because the tea that I have here today is it's special for a number of reasons. First of all, it's just a really special tea in general. Second, it's one of the first teas, if not the first, very serious tea that I ever purchased. And if you guys know or have been following me, you know that tea is something that I've really been kind of gravitating towards lately. I'm finding that it's something that I can really geek out on, much like I can with wine or craft beer, but gives you a totally different option in terms of, time that you can drink it and the way that it kind of affects you, and all those things, while still being able to have something that is really, really an incredible product, really, really tasty product, and can provide you with some really awesome benefits. So what I'm doing, since this is the first real serious tea video that I'm shooting for the Liquid Culture, my plan here is just to run through a session as I would with this tea if I were just sitting at home without the camera. Let you guys kind of tune in to that. May chop it down a little bit later, but not going to worry about trying to make it quick now. Just going to run through a session, talk about the tea, and talk about what I'm kind of getting from the tea, both from a flavor and aroma perspective, but also from the body sensation and whatever other psychedelic kind of effects that it has on me. And you heard that right. This is a tea a lot of people don't realize, but tea is something that, if you have the right tea in the right setting, can very much have a psychoactive effect on you. It's not because there are like mushrooms that have been weaved into the tea or any sort of THC or anything like that. It's specifically from the tea itself and some of the chemical compounds that go into the tea. So we'll talk about that in a second. So first, the setup here. So I'm taking a little bit out of the playbook of my buddy Ezra, who has a really excellent tea channel. Play a little bit of the lo-fi hip-hop in the background. I think it really sets the mood nicely. This is Idealism, who probably easily my favorite lo-fi kind of hip-hop, chill-hop kind of artist. The setup I have here, I've got my kettle over here. Gonna need to reheat it back up to 205. I've got my my knife here to dig into this cake. This is the cake I'll be showing you. I've got my gaiwan. So gaiwan, this is a very traditional gung fu style of tea brewing. Leaves are gonna go in here, water on top. Then we strain it out into our gong dao bei, which is this isn't really a gong dao bei. This is a beaker from Pyrex that I'll be using as my gong dao bei. I really like it for that purpose. And then my teacup, of course, gonna need to rinse a little bit, but I'll get this guy out of the way in a second. And then a lot of people, when they're doing a gung fu style brewing, they've got a little tea pet with them. I don't have a tea pet. I probably don't plan on purchasing one anytime soon, because I've got a great little collection of Legos and bear bricks and stuff like that. So I've got Director Krennic here with me today to travel through this psychedelic session of aged white teas. So he's just going to hang out here. Let's talk about the tea, guys. Jade Star 4. This is a really kind of highly anticipated tea every year from Mei Leaf. So Mei Leaf was the first kind of tea company that really got me into diving deep. It's a little bit of a larger tea company. They're based in the UK, I want to say, but source all of their teas directly from China, Taiwan, Japan, wherever they're getting them from. But they have a really incredible educational aspect to their website, in addition to selling some really excellent tea. The other thing I love about them is their label work on their cakes. And then on the back, of the label, they have all the instructions on the back here for how to properly brew the tea. So what is Jade Star for, and why is it such a highly anticipated tea every year from Mei Leaf? So the reason being is that this is what's called an aged white tea. So white tea, very minimally oxidized and processed tea. So you kind of have white tea, green tea, pu'er tea, black tea. That's kind of, if you want to look at like a spectrum of oxidation, white tea is going to have as little kind of human interaction as possible beyond just picking and then, you know, the aging and the pressing of the cake. So this is a Baimudan Shomei blend from 2010. So this is vintage tea, just like you would get a vintage wine. This was picked in 2010, these tea leaves. I want to say it was spring of 2010 that these leaves were picked, and then pressed fairly recently. I want to say just a couple of years ago it was pressed into this cake. But I want to give you a close-up look of what this cake of tea looks like. And what you're seeing here is that blend of the Baimudan and the Shomei. So you've got some larger leaves, some larger leaf material in there, but all those little silver bits, those are all buds. So just like with any other plant, you're going to have a branch, then you have a leaf that buds, and then it turns into a very young leaf, and then stays on the branch and turns into larger, older leaves. So with this, what we have is a very high bud concentration in addition to some very young leaf concentration. Why does that matter? So why that matters is that the combination of the two chemical compounds within tea that really kind of sets it apart from really everything else is, yes, you have caffeine, just like with coffee, but with teas like this, you also have a high level of theanine. And when you combine those two together, the caffeine, which gives you that kind of amped up energy, that slightly jittery, slightly focused, kind of ready to get shit done kind of a feeling, theanine, it brings in the opposite of that. Theanine kind of does this thing where it relaxes your brain. It makes you more focused, but more contemplative. So not so much like I need to sit down and, rip some work out. More I need to sit down and really think about a subject or a topic that I haven't really thought much about. And I really want to dig into that topic and think it out. And when you combine those two things together, what you have is, if the levels are high enough, it gives you what's referred to as a tea drunk or a tea high. And I by no means am somebody who's kind of always searching for a buzz, right? But when I first heard about the ability of tea to give you a drunk or psychedelic feeling, or like a high like you would get from marijuana or anything else, it doesn't take you to that kind of psilocybin kind of mushroom thing. But what it does do is if those levels are in the right amounts and they are in conjuncture with each other, what happens is you end up with this very kind of nice, relaxed but focused, kind of floaty, meditative kind of a feeling. And the first time I drank this tea, it really, really blew me away. And so I'm really interested to see how it goes today. I mean, full disclosure, the first time I drank this tea, I went through about an hour-long session, and at the end of it, I was quite giggly and quite, very much like you would experience with, taking a couple of hits of the old devil's lettuce kind of a feeling. So really excited to dive in. I have not tasted it since the first time I got this cake, popped it open, and did a session with it. So this will be my second time trying this tea. So I want to get a nice little bit busted off here with a good combination of material, both bud and large leaf. So I'm going to set that there. Water's coming up to 205. So what we're going to do first is we're going to warm up our tea set here, our Gaiwan, our Gongdao Bei, and our tea cup. And once it's warm, we'll add the leaves in. So little water here, drop the lid on. So what's going to happen is tea's going to go in, we're going to steep it for a little bit, pour it off, drink it, and we're just going to hit those one after another. I'm going to do some a smaller amount of tea here, smaller infusions, so that they're just kind of quick hits, and we're going to roll through about I don't know, maybe 15 infusions on this tea and just see how it develops, see what the kind of body feel is like at the end of that, and really just get a good idea of what this tea can offer. So there's the warm up. So we're going to drop our tea into the Gaiwan, lid on. Put my blade away here. And then rewrap this beautiful cake so that it lasts a long time. So this is absolutely, I told you this is from 2010. This is absolutely a tea that, again, just like wine, can age. So I plan on, since this tea sold out relatively quickly after it was released, this is the only cake of it I have and the only cake of it that I will ever have. So I plan on trying to spread this, this cake out over the course of a couple of years in an effect to kind of see how it ages, what the flavors are like, what the structure is like, and what that kind of feeling is like. So we're going to give these dry leaves that have been just kind of warmed up a little sniff. First thing that's coming out is just a really nice kind of golden raisin kind of aroma. That's the immediate aroma. Some kind of almost like a plum wine, like a Japanese plum wine. This kind of reminds me of a little bit on the nose as well. So next step in the process, we do the wash. So this is very common with cake teas, or really any kind of oolong or serious tea that you're wanting to drink, beyond just the standard kind of drop it in a strainer, pour water over it, and then drink it. You want to give your tea a wash. It kind of works in the same aspect as if you were, if you're a big like pour over Chemex V60 kind of coffee drinker, brewer, you always do that kind of bloom phase on your coffee before you pour in the full round of water. This is kind of the same thing. It washes anything off the outside of it. It helps it kind of open up and bloom, and really kind of helps the tea to get a good jump start on the brew process. So washed and ready. So I'll do a little bit more than that. First couple infusions, guys, if you're going to start getting into this, first thing to kind of know about the drinking portion of the program here is the first couple of infusions are not the best. I mean, they usually, you want to give it a nice long first infusion in order to really open those leaves up, start getting some of those full flavors out of it. But it's not going to be, especially with a bud heavy tea like this, you're not going to get the most flavor out of that first one or even two infusions. So you want to give it a good jump start, but don't expect that first sip to be the first thing that you're going to taste, especially with things like raw pu'er teas. Very similar to the white teas, but they're fermented, aged longer. It's a slightly different process. But those usually have a real strong bitterness on the front first one or two, sometimes even into the fifth infusion. You get a real strong bitterness from some of those teas, and it takes a second to really kind of meld that away and get into the crux of the tea. Almost like with wine, you decant wine so that it can open up, it can breathe, and you really start to get a good expression of the wine after you've done that. So first infusion here, real nice and light. Let's give it a sniff here. So now that the leaves have got some moisture on them, the aroma coming through is much more like kind of woodsy at this point. Like like old antique furniture, but there's still a really nice kind of honeyed hay sweetness, almost like a honey like a honey bread, you know, like a loaf of bread that's like that honey wheat kind of bread. It kind of has that aroma going on with it as well. When it comes to tea, guys, unlike with wine, you know, wine, you're actually smelling the wine directly itself. Like if this were wine, you'd be in here. With tea, I often find that the aroma comes a lot stronger from smelling the leaves than it does from smelling the liquor itself. Yeah, this is very, very faint, very, very faint aroma in here. Some of those same things, but just nowhere near as strong as they were coming from the leaves. So we'll give it a sip here. Quite mellow. Creamy on the palate, but really just muted. Not a ton going on with this first infusion. Tasty, definitely. Don't get me wrong. It's a really good start, and it's showing characteristics of there's something to come here with this tea. Definitely some upside here. But very first infusion, just very, very light. So what we're going to do is, and I don't have my timer here, you know, I don't get too serious about it, but what we're going to do is we're going to try and increase the length of the infusion each and every time. We're going to start adding some more time to the infusion so that we really start bringing out those flavors and aromas. So you might be wondering, why do I not go straight from the Gaiwan into the cup? Why am I going into the Gong Dao Bei or the Pyrex beaker here? The reason for that is, and it doesn't really matter as much today since I'm doing some kind of smaller pours here. We're doing some kind of smaller infusions, but where this little device comes in handy is with tea brewing. Oftentimes that first pour is going to be a lighter pour, and then the second one a little darker, and the third one a little darker. Now that's a really cool game to play and a fun experiment if you're doing something like a ripe pu'er tea, where the first pour is a nice light kind of red, the second pour a little bit darker, almost to the point where you can't see through it, and then the last pour is this really rich. I mean, it could very easily be mistaken for espresso. It's that dark, and that's a fun game to play if if that's something that you're trying to just kind of do light to dark. But oftentimes when you're brewing tea for yourself and even for a group, you really want to make sure that you're getting all the tea into one vessel to mix together, so you have one cohesive pour into each cup. You're not getting that variation in pours. So that's the purpose of the Gong Dao Bei. Idealism, man. I mean, this is just starting your day off with a little gung fu session with a little idealism. Sun's coming up. It's just a really, really exceptional way to start your day off. We're about midday here, almost to noon that I'm shooting this, so I'll probably have a little bit of an afternoon buzz going. But I would say that this is sandwiching a session with a tea like this in between breakfast and lunch is probably a good call. You don't want to drink teas like this on an empty stomach, and you certainly will get a somewhat of a munchy character from them that you will want to have a little bit of food afterwards for sure. Sorry about that. Yeah, so that kind of wood furniture, that kind of like wood varnish kind of character starting to come through for sure. More of that kind of golden raisin, nice kind of juicy, plump golden raisins. Slight bit of minerality starting to pop out, but nothing crazy. Let's see. Creamier and slightly more flavorful as well. I'm going to go ahead and get the next infusion rolling just so that we can, have a little bit more time with it in the Gaiwan. Kind of like a milk chocolate, kind of a creaminess on the palate for sure. I'm not a huge fan of like a standard Hershey's milk chocolate bar. That certainly is probably the last candy bar I would ever grab for. I'm more of a dark chocolate kind of a guy. But this is very reminiscent of like a nice, creamy, milky chocolate. There's subtle hints of the chocolate with a lot of the cream. Very nice and kind of a warming sensation here. Not just because it's hot, but I mean, you can kind of just feel it run through your body. Kind of nice honeyed character, so a good sweetness to it for sure. I think it's going to get sweeter. Like I said, this is one of those teas that really benefits from multiple infusions, and you kind of hit that sweet spot right there in between that 8, 9, 10 infusion point. After that, it kind of starts to tail off a little bit, but you still certainly can get some good cups of it after that. But it's going to take us a minute or two to really get into the crux of this tea. To get all the little drippies out. Starting to cream out now on the nose here. Certainly not as much of that wood varnish, antique furniture kind of vibe on this infusion. There's a fruitiness that I can tell is like starting to emerge. I don't think it's citrus. It maybe is something like cherry maybe even, but not real bright cherry, like a very mellowed out kind of ultra ripe kind of cherry, not a lot of acidity. Infusion number 3. Still kind of running that same vein. Creaminess, little milk chocolate character, fruitiness starting to come through more so on the palate now, kind of brighter fruit on the palate, little acidity coming through. Yeah, definitely some brightness on this infusion. Now, what I like to do when I brew is I start out at that 205 that I mentioned, and then I kind of just let the kettle kind of come down a little bit until I hit about 180, and then I'll crank it back up again. But I really like to see how temperature fluctuations with the water changes the overall characteristic of the tea from infusion to infusion. Just like, again, with a wine or a beer, it tastes totally different at 45 degrees than it does at 65 degrees. And so, it's always interesting for me, no matter what I'm drinking, to kind of experience them at different temperature levels. It's a really, really tasty tea. I mean, right now it's not in that like, oh my God, like blow you away kind of phase in its overall flavor, but it's right now it's drinking like a really nice everyday tea. And I know that the more we get into it, the more it's going to start to open up and really express. I'm already even starting to feel, even this is infusion 3, pretty good cup sizes, but only infusion 3, and I'm already starting to feel very relaxed, very just I could sit back in here and just kind of look out the window and just, you know, watch the day go by, kind of relaxation. But I know, and having had this tea before, that relaxation kind of comes in first, then the focus kind of comes into play. And then once those two kind of balance out towards the end, you've got a really interesting kind of head and body sensation that start to take over. I really need to get a strainer so I'm not wasting so much tea and pouring out all the little bits that make it through. So guys, you know, this is going to be for sure a little bit of a longer video. So if you're in it and you're paying attention, you know, take little breaks and shoot me some DMs. Ask me some questions. I certainly am still, would consider myself very much like at the beginning of this tea journey, but I know a lot of you out there haven't even stepped foot into tea yet. But tea is a really, really, I think, a great intersection of something that does not give you the alcohol effect. Now, this tea kind of withstanding, this one can do that, but most teas do not produce a tea high or a tea drunk. And so for people out there who maybe don't drink, who can't drink, who don't like to drink, who, you know, just people in general who don't look to alcohol as a hobby or a source of enjoyment, but who still very much like to learn about things, especially, you know, high-end kind of consumer products like tea, wine, cigars, coffee, chocolate. Tea is a very, very cool intersection between those two things. So my brother-in-law, for instance, does not drink, and but he is really big into cigars. So when he comes down to visit, I have introduced him a little bit into tea. And the way that he digs into cigars, the way that I dig into wine, we both are able to really dig into tea together because of that. So if you're out there, if you're considering making a jump into the tea world, whether it's because you don't drink or because you're just interested in it in general, hit me up. Like, ask me some questions. Ask me where my favorite, you know, tea companies are, favorite people to buy tea from, what some of my favorite teas are, what I think they pair with, because that is one of the things that I haven't mentioned yet about tea, is that its ability to pair with things like cigars, with things like chocolate, with things like other foods, really is exceptional, and I think underknown and underplayed. I personally feel like tea belongs on the kind of pairing with food table just as much as wine does. Sorry about that, guys. My battery died on me. But what we were talking about was how well tea can pair with really a lot of things, and food especially. I think that tea certainly belongs in that conversation as a beverage to be paired with food. So this is infusion 4 now, I believe. Infusion 4, maybe 5. Starting to lose track a little bit already. This one kind of cooled down a little bit while I was replacing the battery. So gonna just probably go ahead and chalk this one up to a loss. But still kind of running that same vein, that very creamy, smooth, easy drinking, slightly woodsy. There's a little tannin starting to come through now as that you know, tea kind of starts to really open up and soak into that water, the more that it gets infused, tannin starting to come through, just like the tannin in wine. Tea is very tannin heavy, just like wine is, especially certain types of tea. So again, puts it right in that food pairing conversation as well. Go ahead and get the temp cranked back up on the kettle here. Next infusion. So haven't really been giving you guys a nice up close look on the color, but it's been a little light on the first couple, but now kind of matches my sweater here. So probably didn't wear the best top to showcase this tea, but it actually could maybe provide a little, I mean, it's almost identical really, the color of the shirt and the tea. Fruitiness really starting to come through now on the leaves. I feel like the leaves are almost like they're a lagger behind the flavor of the tea. So before it was like slight bit of fruit character, overripe, not a lot of brightness, and then on the flavor of the liquor itself, bright fruits. Now bright fruits are starting to come through with the tea. Yeah, really starting to open up here. Let's see. Whoa. Now there's like almost like a Sichuan peppercorn kind of a tingly, peppery, spicy character on the palate. Wow, that's really interesting. I don't remember if I got that on any of the infusions the first time I did a session with this tea, but a really interesting flavor component now. Very tingly on the tongue, like Sichuan peppercorns. They have that characteristic effect on your palate where they kind of make your tongue go numb a little bit. In addition to that kind of standard spice character that you get from regular types of peppercorn, that's kind of happening now on my palate with this tea. Further solidifying the idea that a tea, especially a tea like this, I mean, this would be exceptional tea to have with, I know it might sound crazy, it's a Chinese tea, I don't know if I mentioned, but from Fujian, which is a very, I mean, when you talk about terroir, this is kind of like Burgundy, this is like Meursault or Pauillac in Bordeaux. I mean, this is when you're talking about like terroir, like well-known terroir for tea. Fuding in Fujian, the tops for tea production. Elevation on this too. We talk about elevation a lot in wine. I feel like I should for sure have an elevation on this. Doesn't tell me, but I'm pretty positive it's about 1,000 to 2,000 meters in elevation, 800 to 1,000 meters in elevation. So certainly not the highest, but up there for sure in terms of where these tea trees are grown. And when I say tree, there are some tea trees. I mean, tea plants vary quite a bit in terms of their size and their age. Some are just very simple bushes. Others are absolute trees, thick 300, 400, 500-year-old trees. And I'll be sure to do a pu'er tea, a gushu pu'er that I have for this channel that showcases a tea that's made with leaves that have come from a tree that is just ancient. This tea is still very much drinking creamy and smooth and delicious. I forget where I was going with the conversation about why I started talking about elevation. I don't recall, but we were talking about this tea comes from China, and sounds kind of cliche to say that this tea would work incredibly in a nice big kind of lazy Susan Chinese feast. Nice formal Chinese dinner with all the whole roasted fish and the noodles and the dumplings and the stir-fry meats and vegetables and lots of explosive flavors going on all over the place. This tea would work incredibly in that environment. Those of you still living in Dallas, rural China, that was always my go-to spot, my number one best Chinese food in town. So highly would recommend maybe bringing your tea setup to rural China and diving into a nice meal with some of this tea. Certainly starting to feel the relaxed effects of this tea. You can probably tell a bit in my speech, a bit my eyes. I feel my eyes are starting to get a little bit heavy. It's putting me in this just really calm, relaxed, slightly giggly kind of sensibility, a slight euphoria at the moment. Vision's getting a little bit kind of, moving the head back and forth. You've got a little bit of lag with some things, and really enjoying the way that I'm feeling right now with this Bai Mudan Shumei blend from 2010 Mei Leaf. Shout out to Don from Mei Leaf, does all the videos. He's the owner of the company, I believe, but does all the videos anytime they have a new tea, does a video for the tea review. Lots of great educational videos on Mei Leaf as well. I would highly recommend giving them a look. It's probably, I haven't looked at the books, but it's probably of all the tea houses that I buy from, probably the largest. But because of that, they have incredible resources at their disposal, and they put a lot of really great information out there for tea heads like myself. That kind of honey wheat bread is starting to come back now. What infusion is this? 6, 7? I don't know. Somewhere around there, 6 or 7. So we should be hitting the kind of sweet spot on this tea here. If I don't get if I don't get too loopy before we hit that sweet spot and just start not caring about the flavors and aromas, but we're there. Continues to be insanely creamy. That Sichuan peppercorn character still rolling on this infusion. Trying to think if there's anything else that's coming out for me. Something that I'm finding as a trend lately, and I don't know if it's just the teas that I'm drinking, maybe they come from similar terroir. Maybe it's my palate, I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, the last few serious sessions that I've had, whether it be white tea or pu'er, they've taken me to the beach. And I'm not in a sense of like really hot beach or like spring break beach or it's more of that, and I think I mentioned it on one of the posts that I put up about a tea that I had recently. It's more of this kind of like laying down on the sand. You're not even in a swimsuit. You just decided, maybe you were having lunch at a spot near the beach, and you just decided after lunch that, you know, maybe you had like a nice meal, not too heavy but enough, and then you had maybe 2 beers, and you start to have this kind of like post-lunch kind of nappy kind of a vibe. So you just walk out to the beach fully clothed, find a spot, kick your shoes off, lay down in the sand, kind of have just a maybe a 75-degree sun just kind of shining on your face. You can smell the sand. You can smell kind of like that, and I don't know if maybe there's a better name for it, but almost that inner tube, that kind of rubber plastic inner tube kind of aroma. You know, the kids are, you know, playing on their inner tube somewhere. You get that kind of aroma from that. Kind of a salty sea, foamy character as well. You can smell the ocean, feel in the sand. I mean, that's, for whatever reason, the last few serious teas that I've had have taken me to that place, and I need to figure out if it's the terroir. I need to do a little bit of further digging on the last couple of teas in addition to this one, and see maybe it's Fujian. Maybe it's high elevation. I don't know what it is. Minerality, which is also very highly sought after. You know, a lot of times something like really nice, crisp Riesling or Sauvignon Blanc or Chardonnay from Burgundy, you look for this minerality. Same with like Cuban cigars. They have these like Cuban twang to them from the mineral content and the soil that those leaves are grown in. And with tea, it's the same way. If you get a really nice high mineral content tea, it can be strange at first, but then becomes something that you almost seek out. You look for it and you hope to find it in a tea. And from what I've read too, as far as the tea high and the tea drunk effects, the minerality in the soil really helps to accentuate that. For some reason, it adds to that effect that you get. How are you guys liking idealism? That's another one. Shoot me a DM or something. Let's get some conversation going. Let's talk about music. Let's talk about tea. Let's talk about, I don't know, anybody else going through a 2020, like a January 2020 cleanse or a dry January or something like that? What do you like to drink whenever you're doing a bit of a detox? Are you on kombucha? Are you on loose leaf tea like this? Do you cut the caffeine out as well? I've actually been trying to really lower the amount of coffee that I'm drinking in the morning and just sticking specifically to the tea. And here's why. So with coffee, you've got caffeine, and you guys follow me, you know that I'm a big coffee person as well as the tea. But with coffee, you don't have all the antioxidant compounds, the extra kind of molecules and chemical compounds within tea that bring you that incredible health benefit that tea does. As far as healthy beverages go, next to water, I think tea has got to be right there, and maybe even could certainly surpass water, just because you're brewing it with the water, but you're pulling all of this incredible nutrients out of your tea, in addition to that nice little caffeine buzz that you get. So in my opinion, tea just kind of tops them all. Still rolling here. 8, maybe 8, 9. I'm almost putting a little bit too much water, and I'm starting to, I don't know, maybe I've got another 2 or 3 infusions left here. We'll see. Cool thing about white tea, fun fact, if you're hanging in there, with these white teas, they can be quite expensive, but you saw the small amount that I busted off of this cake in order to do this entire session here today. This tea will take me easily 10, 12, up to 20 infusions, no problem. When you're done, you can then take those leaves and stick them in boiling water and let them boil for about 10 minutes, and then you're left with this incredible concentrated, honeyed white tea. It doesn't have that same psychoactive effect that we're experiencing right now, but as far as just a pure flavor-packed standpoint, really exceptional use for your leftover white tea leaves. So yeah, I probably paid over $100 for this cake of tea, but like I told you before, this cake I'm going to have stretched out probably over the next 2 to 3 years at least, because it's such a visceral experience when you have a session like this, and then afterwards you can boil those leaves, and I mean, you could make easily a good day or two's worth of, whether you want to drink it hot, cold, whatever, of just a nice, beautiful white tea to drink on. I'm gonna really try and let this next infusion kind of sit in here and steep. But yeah, guys, let's get a little bit of a conversation going. I mean, I haven't really connected with y'all in a while. Things have been busy, and you know, with dry January, off dry January, you know, that keeps me away from the channel a little bit. So I would love to hear from you. Send me some DMs on Instagram, write comments in the YouTube page. Let's just talk, guys. Let's talk about what you're drinking and what's going on right now. And if you're really interested in getting into tea, I would love to be your sort of tea shaman to kind of help dip your toe into that world and really start to get excited about it. That milk chocolate now, the Szechuan peppercorns have kind of calmed down, and that milk chocolate is back on the palate now. Really nice, creamy, milky, with that hint of just that sweetness of that chocolate. Really nice on the back end here. Still holding a really beautiful color. Let's see. Definitely like dried cherry. That minerality, it's eluding me. It's there, but it's not real potent. And I can't pinpoint, is it like a limestone minerality? Is it chalky? Is it slate? I can't, it's kind of just right in the back there. As far as the psychoactive effects, I'm starting to make, so if we started here, right, and then we kind of drop down a little bit in terms of just that relaxation, right? So we're here at level, drop down in terms of that relaxation and kind of hung there for a little bit. Now I'm starting to feel that caffeine. You know, it's been probably 30 or so minutes, maybe 40 minutes. So usually it's about 30 minutes before caffeine starts to really affect you. So I'm starting to feel that caffeine kind of kick in, and we're getting a little bit back here to kind of an even ground, but still very relaxed, a very warming kind of body sensation right now. But my head is turning from kind of giggly, light, relaxed to focus is starting to kick in. So relaxed, warm, kind of inviting, like snuggly on the couch kind of body feel, with the head vibe right now being very focused, and not very focused, but I can tell I'm making my direction there in terms of just starting to get my headspace back to like focusing in and like wanting to work and like get things figured out, and really a great combination to lead into the afternoon to kind of get some stuff done work-wise after shooting this. So I think I'll probably make this the last infusion. Let's see, I've got a little bit more. We'll make it a little bit bigger one because I think we're about done here. Yeah. So this will be final infusion. You know, my buddy Ezra, Rabbit of Tea, he does these live, and I'm starting to understand why, because I really am in a mindset right now to want to talk with you guys. So I may take another page out of his playbook in addition to the chill music in the background. I may take another page out of his playbook and do a live session here coming up. Maybe a Sunday morning live session or something like that could be a lot of fun. Because yeah, I'm really wishing I had some of you guys on the other side of this to talk with and to ask some questions. Well, this steeped, so I guess things coming up, something really big going on for me, and I've mentioned it a couple of times on Instagram, but if you're watching this, here pretty soon we're going to be incorporating a new experience at Ab Astris, my in-laws winery, which you guys know I'm very much associated with. A new experience, a wine and food pairing experience, where I am going to be preparing and serving food to be paired with a wine. So 5 courses, 5 wines. It's really going to be something that I think takes up a lot of my time, but also something that I think will really allow me to share some things with you guys in terms of some more like food and wine pairing experiences and education surrounding that, why I chose to pair which foods with which wines, why they work with each other, why they're compatible. It'll be a really good opportunity, I think, to help you guys better understand the wine and food pairing concept and apply it in your with your own wines, with your own foods, with some good foundational information with that. All right, last one. This is at least 10, right? I mean, I don't know who's counting, but this is for sure got to be number 10 here, or 11. Last sniff. The varnish has come back. The antique furniture. And here, guys, I don't know if I haven't done this, but here are what the leaves look like. So even though this is a white tea, I mean, look at the color. Those leaves are almost black at this point, which is really interesting. Definitely different than like what pu'er wet leaves or raw pu'er wet leaves look like. They have a little bit more color to them than this. This almost looks like a bowl full of seaweed here. But yeah, that wood varnish has kind of come back, in addition to some brighter fruit character starting to come through, like a real nice fresh plum, some good acidic kind of underripe cherry. I mean, still all the way through remained incredibly creamy, no bitterness whatsoever, slight bits of tannin coming through on certain infusions depending on how much water and how long they sat for. But this is kind of I think I wanted to do my first serious tea video. I wanted to just go all out. I wanted to go all out with the tea I chose. I wanted to go all out with giving you guys as much information as I possibly can. Didn't dig into the terroir too much, but again, I'm still a little bit of a novice when it comes to that with tea. So any tea videos I'll do in the future, I'll probably cut them down a little bit more than this one, but I was just excited about this. I haven't been in front of the camera in a while, and I wanted to really share this specialty with you guys and talk about it as free as possible, and just let you guys see the full unadulterated experience that this tea can provide for you. So that's gonna be it. I'm gonna go ahead and call it. I'm Mitchell Chirac for the Liquid Culture, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye bye.